Taylor Budlight Heinicke wins his Heineken Hate Game.
Brady narrowly edges past Bill.
And Zach Wilson finally gets his first win.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Inspection. Whew, Nick, what a week of football and non-football related issues we have to talk about today. But first, before we go anywhere, I would like to thank all of the viewers. Our last episode did great. We got over 100 viewers, getting close to 2. So I'd like everybody just, if you like to know more about us, you can find us at smishow.com. We are on Twitter at SMI Football Show. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, all under Saturday Morning Inspection. So just give us a look, and we love to have you. But before we get into things, Nick, it seems like you've dressed up for this episode. You care to comment?
Oh, yeah. So with Dallas winning their third straight game and looking pretty good doing it, I felt I had to represent the cowboy lifestyle a little bit with my bolo tie and my Western shirt.
I want to call you Nick Jones for a minute. You look like Jerry's son. I feel like that's what he would wear.
I'm not saying Jerry would wear this. I'm just saying Jerry would be proud of me for wearing it.
Well, let's comment on that. You might have a pontoon boat. Jerry has a yacht, but one of the two.
The important thing is we're thinking the same.
Yeah, you're small steps. You at least have you can have, say you have a boat or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm sure, as everybody knows, if you're tuning into our podcast, that means you like something about the NFL or the football in general. And everyone in the world, even if you didn't know about football, has heard about this story, but I digress. We must comment on it. Urban Meyer seemed to have quite the relaxing weekend, so to speak, at first, until a video broke of him at a local bar that he owns, having scandalous positions with a young lady, a lap dance of sorts. But as bad as that is, there's a lot more implication to that than the action. So I would like to dive into that a little bit, if you don't mind, Nick.
I don't mind at all.
Stage 1. Urban Meyer did not fly home with the football team. I've never heard of a coach who did not travel home with a football team before, especially after a loss, especially when you are now 0-4. Number 2, the reason he gave that he did not fly home is that they were in his hometown of Ohio, and he would like to see his grandkids. It was obvious a lie because his grandkids were not at a bar, and his grandkids aren't a 20-year-old something blonde. So maybe he did see them, but this is not a good look on Urban Meyer.
Yeah, no, not at all. I think, one of the things, and at least when I played the bus ride, I mean, coaches, especially if you lose, head coaches, they hate it, but I feel like they love the bus ride because they love being in that bus and just sitting there and just waiting for someone to even hint of having any happiness or joy so they can pounce and attack and yell at them. So
it's a camaraderie building exercise.
That's how they think it is anyway. So yeah, the fact that Urban Meyer would turn that down, that's unheard of.
Now, getting a little bit into this, a little deeper, my third point was when all of the news broke. First of all, his press conference was just pitiful. Why did he even try? Second thing that happened, Monday morning when he's supposed to face the team for the first time, he kind of pusses out and canceled Monday morning's meeting. Like, that doesn't show me good leadership. Take your actions, take it head on. If he would have gone straight in that meeting and is like, guys, look, I messed up. I really messed up. I apologize. I think things would have ended up, the media headlines would be a little bit different. They wouldn't still be going multiple days afterwards. But, it'd be fine if this was the first thing Urban's ever done, but it's not. You remember early on this year when he hired the strength and conditioning coach, who's now in like lawsuits for like racially profiling, things of that nature. I think his name was Chris Doyle or something.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of rough patches along the way. Not to mention he's 0-4. He's coach of the worst football team in the NFL currently. Why wasn't he watching film? Why was he with his grandkids? He's got to turn this bus around, unless he doesn't care to and he has other plans. But at the beginning of the season, Urban stated he doesn't want to be a distraction for the team. Well, a few weeks before this, a distraction came out in the Southern Cal job, and whether he liked it or not, the media has tied him to that job numerous times. That's a distraction in itself. Why add on to the media circus? You're just giving them things to pick about you. And finally, and I'll let you comment more on this part. The most important person he let down was the players. It's like this event involved a blonde-haired woman, and now he has yet laid his future in the hands of a young blonde in Trevor Lawrence. If he doesn't win a game here soon, with all the press coming out, I don't think he is long for this Jacksonville world, but he first has to win back the locker room. And I think you commented there's something that happened earlier this week with the team and the locker room.
Right. So there's a couple things I want to hit on. The first thing, it is absolutely unheard of for a coach to cancel a team meeting, right? During training camp, we'd have team meetings after film at like 9:00 at night that were like 5 minutes long sometimes, where the purpose of the meeting, the coach would come in and basically say, hey, good day today or bad day today. All right, let's go get our snack and then go to bed. Like that's literally was the meeting. They wouldn't even cancel that meeting. So the fact that Urban canceled a team meeting, that's again, another unheard of. But the bigger thing is, right, you got a lot of reports out of the media that, unnamed players had talked to different reporters saying that they laughed him out the room or he's lost the respect of the team. I will say this, in Urban's defense, in any meeting room I've been in, roughly half the guys hate the coach. And if they can talk to a media to badmouth the coach, they will. I mean, I've been in meetings where coaches have given rah-rah speeches where a third of the room loves it, a third of the room doesn't care and there's not paying attention, and a third of the room thinks the coach is the biggest idiot that's walked the face of the earth. And that can just change day to day. So the fact that you hear these stories coming out is no inclination that, hey, he's lost the locker room and everybody hates him. It just means that the people that really don't like Urban Meyer, the real gripers and whiners, are feeling enabled to go out and talk to the media.
He's giving them ammo.
Oh yeah, I think that's the one problem, right? It is a distraction to the point where the players that are dedicated and winning and wanting to get better and win more football games and, or at least try to win more football games, they now got to put up with this, right? That, like you said, Trevor Lawrence's of the world, it is a distraction. It doesn't necessarily, I think for those guys, it doesn't hurt their morale because their morale wasn't going to be hurt one way to begin with. It's just another pain in the butt they got to put up with. And that just hurts the team.
Well, in all of this, someone else vital to the team and someone else vital in Urban's life who has highest moral character. What would Tim Tebow think about all of this? I feel bad for the morning. Tim Tebow, the guy that he has the most upstanding opinion of, his college coach that they went through battle together. They won national champions together. They won Heisman trophies together. And he turns on the TV as if it's not bad enough. He turns on the TV and his idol is just morally shaming himself to the public. I can't imagine what he would think about it.
I think the crazier thing is looking back to that Florida team, right? Where you had Aaron Hernandez, the Pouncey twins.
Maybe
Percy
Urban
Harvin
was enabling all of them.
And then Urban Meyer, I guess, evidently had some issues too. I mean, I guess it was basically Tim Tebow, like the perfect human being, and a bunch of people with questionable moral character.
What is it with Tim Tebow having what seems like high moral character quarterbacks and he being the problem with the team?
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the things we got to look at is maybe it's Tim Tebow's fault, right? Maybe he set too high a standard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's blame Tebow like one more time, at least.
Yeah,
I bet if the ESPN got a hold of this, that would be the first article. Is Tim Tebow to blame?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Stephen A. would have a few thoughts on that.
But anyways, the whole issue is just crazy, and uh, there's so many things you can say, but he's got a very short leash to hang himself these next few weeks, and I think if he steps out of line, if he's not in the office early and leaving late every night, he won't be around for much longer. But something that will be around for a little bit longer, let's talk about Monday Night Manning, the Manning cast, as some have called it. I would like to get your thoughts, and I have some thoughts as well, but some critiques on why it is the way that it is, some things that can make it better. And for anyone who doesn't know, I own a film TV production company, so I do have some valid thoughts on how to criticize it. So I'm not just the average Joe. I'm just slightly less average.
Yeah, so I think it's a cool concept and it can be entertaining at times, but I definitely think some of the guys that have on the cast is just really, really bad, and it kind of distracts from the game a little bit. I think they have some cool conversations about different things and different coverages or reads they're looking at, but it really doesn't help to have Brett Favre on, and Brett Favre is just trying to get his internet working in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, with whatever dial-up connection.
Gronk has a card game to get back to.
Yeah, Gronk's got a card game. It's just sometimes it just looks pretty bad. You got Nick Saban openly recruiting Arch Manning on the Manning cast.
Hey, so, I mean, is it really what do they call it? Tampering if he's not talking to him directly?
Yeah, I guess not if he can get away with it. But I think it's entertaining. It's just honestly, I think because ESPN's normal telecast is so bad, people use it as an alternative, the Manning cast.
Yeah. It's like the lesser of the two evils.
Right. If Romo or Al Michaels or Joe Buck, Troy Aikman were doing Monday Night Football, no one would watch the Manning cast.
Well, one thing I will laud ESPN for is they've done something that I didn't think they would do. And this might be Manning initiated, if so, good on them. They gave us a taste for 3 weeks, and now they have stopped until week 7. So they took about 3 or 4 weeks off. I think that's kind of cool in the fact that I would think ESPN would jam it down our throats until we got sick of it and we didn't want to watch it anymore. But now we have to go back to the terrible Monday Night Football broadcast and long for the days, oh, do you remember how great the Manning cast was? So we wait till week 7 when they will be back. But a few things that we have talked about before, and I'll give you some credit because you gave me the single greatest answer I had heard yet. The Mannings, as much as we like to think they're the best football minds around probably, they are not host of a TV show. They are not. There's a lot of dead air. They can't help but watch the football, and they have to watch it to dissect it. One of the best guests they had was Pat McAfee, who is the host of a show, and he has lots of experience hosting. When Charles Barkley also came on, he is the host of a show, and his segment was quite good as well. What they could really grow from is if they had, and you said this, Mike Greenberg or alike, some ESPN person, as a host, a third party to keep the conversation going so we don't have this. And that's about 30 seconds of Peyton Manning staring at the screen to try to analyze the play, and there's nothing being said. Eli's just there being awkward, flipping off the camera like he said a 9-year-old flipped him off in Philadelphia. But I think if they had a host to keep the show along, they could still have guests on if they want to, because I know like TV shows like the ratings, they like to be able to say LeBron's going to be on this week. Whether it makes the show better, I don't necessarily think so, but I think if they have a host, a third man in the booth, so to speak, to keep the conversation going and to call on Peyton and Eli and get their valuable insight, I think that would make it so good. They don't have to waste dumb filler time stuff. They have someone who's a professional at that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it really, I mean, we all want to watch the Mannings, really Peyton and Eli a little bit. Like, to me, the guests are really unnecessary. We want to hear what Peyton Manning and Eli Manning have to say about, the quarterback play and game situations and stuff like that. Right? We don't want to hear what LeBron thinks about football. I mean,
yeah,
it's just not relevant to the show. It's not relevant.
The biggest draw to this, or the biggest comparison, is Tony Romo, when he came on the screen, and he's a guy that I think has a pretty good football IQ, he was calling plays, he was dissecting defenses, he was saying what was going to happen before it happened. People loved it. They went crazy for it. And I think they have the same premise here, but what did Tony had? He had someone in the booth with him, one or two more people to keep the conversation going. So I think they have a great idea, $1 million idea here. I think they need to get someone else in there to keep it alive.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show how much ESPN stinks, right? They have a great idea, they have, everything that should work perfectly, and they find a way to screw it up. So
yeah, maybe we get Archie in there, and he can keep.
That'd actually be pretty good. That'd be pretty funny. I'd like that. But Archie just whacking them around.
Those were some pretty big weeks for ESPN. The Manning cast really brought viewership up a lot, I believe. Another big weekend was this weekend for rookie quarterbacks. Great weekend. We alluded to it earlier. Zach Wilson got his first win against the Titans. Justin Fields played a great game for the Bears. And then Mac Jones, I would say, had the best loss of the season that you could possibly imagine. And Trey Lance also, his first pass was good. So that was about it. But what are your thoughts on some of those things with rookie quarterbacks this weekend?
So Zach Wilson showed off his playmaking ability, right? His talent. I think he made a lot of balls, completed a lot of balls deep downfield to beat the Titans at home. Obviously a big win for him, getting his first win. I think the problem with Wilson is going to be consistency and turnovers. And of course he plays for New York, so he doesn't have a lot of talent. So I think he showed us a glimpse, but there's one thing, it's one thing to have a good game to show a glimpse. It's another thing to stack them together. So he's got to win. Good for him, but I think he's got a long way to go. I think Trey Lance is a heck of an athlete. He showed it in the second half against Seattle. He is not ready to be a starting quarterback in the league. It's going to be a scramble for them. They're going to try and do a lot of, run pass options, read option kind of things, put the ball in his hands to try and make a play with his legs. I think that's how they're going to survive. They probably hope Garoppolo gets back sooner. I heard he may actually even play this weekend, but I think he's not ready for prime time. I think you hit the nail on the head with Mac Jones. I think his composure, his control over the game against Tampa and New England was absolutely amazing. I think he had 19 straight completions at one point. I mean, it's a high pressure environment, right? Spreading the ball around to a lot of players, a lot of receivers who aren't really that good. A real chance to win the game at the end. It didn't work out for him, but I agree with you. I think it's the best loss a rookie quarterback and maybe a team has had this year.
So those are all very impressive. But I'm just going to say it. Somebody wasn't impressive, and I think we laid a tweet out there about it. Baker Mayfield sucks. Yeah. And I think it's the example of you put Matt Stafford on the Rams. If Matt Stafford was on the Browns, they'd be Super Bowl contenders. But they're teetering playoff contenders as they are now. They have an amazing defense. They have great running backs. They have two of the best receivers. They have a pretty good O-line now after they've beefed it up the last 2 years. I mean, he has literally zero excuses. The Steelers suck in the division now. The Bengals are still new. They're not necessarily great. Baltimore is hurt. He has no excuses as to why he shouldn't be putting up huge numbers, yet they're not even the Bengals and the Ravens overshadow them week after week, even though they win just because of how bad the performance is.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, you made a comparison, but I think the comparison to me is Mitchell Trubisky with Chicago the last couple of years, right?
Yeah,
Chicago, they had the great roster and the great defense, but Trubisky kind of held them back a little bit. I think we're seeing that a little bit with Baker, right? I mean, we see him on commercials. We see him do all this other stuff. We have this notion that he's a better player than he is, and he's not. I mean, I think he was 15 of 33, no touchdowns. It was
less than 50% completion is not.
I mean, this is against a bad Minnesota defense, right? This is not a good defense that Minnesota has. Inability to move the ball, inability to finish. I think their one big play offensively was a long run. I think so. He didn't do much at all. It's really bad. And I think Stefanski, the head coach in Cleveland, he's doing everything he can to give Baker, the play actions, the bootlegs, the easy reads. And Baker just he's just not capitalizing on it. He holds the ball too long. He doesn't make the right decisions. He's very inaccurate at times. He's wild. It's just not a good fit. I think in the long term, the way Baker's playing, he's holding Cleveland back, and I think Cleveland's going to feel that, if not this year, next year.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. His contract year is coming up. I think it's next year is the 5th year option.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. So either way, if they keep it or they decline it, it'll surprise me. So let me rephrase it. They're not going to decline it. They're going to take the 5th year option because he's shown a flash the first season, but he's not grown since then.
Well, even if they take the 5th year, right, that's still his rookie deal, which is a discount.
Moving to the next deal, I will be surprised if they give him a new deal, and I'll also be surprised if they don't give him a new deal. So I think
it depends who's on the market, right? I think that drives a big factor.
Do you think they go with a veteran or they try to draft another guy?
Well, so like to compare it with Matt Stafford, if you can trade for a polished veteran who you think can execute at a high level, I think you do that, right? I don't think you draft. I think this roster and team is they're at the right level of age and experience, right? They went to the playoffs last year.
They're
they won
perfect
a game.
win now team.
Yeah, they have like I think a 2 or 3 year window, right? And obviously they're in a tough division. I mean, you're kind of trading Cincinnati for Pittsburgh in terms of quality, but you still have Baltimore's really good. The AFC is tough. Right now it's really win now for them, because there's another echelon of young and up and coming quarterbacks, right? You've got Herbert, who's making big steps forward. You got a lot of other guys in the AFC, Mac Jones, being another, who are going to be coming up slowly and surely up the ranks.
You don't have, I think you're saying there's no lag behind where, we have a couple more years to just try to keep up. No, someone's going to be biting at your heels very soon here. Another like that 3 year gap of QB coming in behind you.
Yep, exactly. And because those other guys are going to be on rookie deals for longer. So if you look at New England or, you look at the Chargers, right? They're going to have more of the cap space and flexibility to make those big moves. Cleveland won't if they lock up Baker for a long term. So I think they're very well aware of that, and they're really focused on winning now. And Baker isn't showing up to let them do that.
Peering from the AFC back towards the NFC, somebody who has shown up and shown up absolutely huge is Kyler Murray.
Yep, big time.
I heard a comment from Rams GM Les Snead, and he said hilariously to me, he's like, I wouldn't mind if Murray and Wilson played baseball. Like, didn't they play baseball in college? He's like, those baseball guys, they get paid a lot of money. Why are they even playing football? So I just thought it was funny that he said something along those lines. What are your thoughts on Kyler? I know, did you watch that game last weekend?
Yeah, so I think with Kyler Murray, it's sort of a Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson hybrid, right? Because he really doesn't, run the ball as much as Lamar Jackson, obviously. But he definitely is very does a lot of scrambling. He does execute with some zone read, downhill runs every once in a while. He's extremely fast, extremely athletic. I think they're just super talented on offense, right? I mean, you look at Christian Kirk, you look at AJ Green, the veteran. They obviously got Hopkins. They got the tight end Max Williams, right? So they got a lot of guys to spread the ball around. And Murray's done a good job distributing the football, making good decisions, and making some big plays. The question will be with Arizona is, can they keep it up for the season, right? They had a hot start last year, and then Murray kind of fell off, and the team kind of fell off. Can they maintain it? Right now, they look a lot better. They killed a really, really good Rams team. So they look like the best team in the NFC.
Who we thought, and they still may be, but, someone has to hit turbulence every once in a while. We thought the Rams were the best team in the NFL at one point, and they still, they're not bad, but there's a question.
Right, and I think the thing with the Arizona, right, because what the Rams have is a lot of veteran leadership, a lot of guys who have been there before. Like, you got the Aaron Donalds, right, who have played in big games and been to a Super Bowl. The Cardinals have none of that, right? I mean, even DeAndre Hopkins or J.J. Watt, those guys have been to a playoff game.
Yeah, they haven't made it much past.
Right, so you look at, Ken Murray and Kingsbury as the head coach, can they maintain that level of focus and performance over the course of a 17-game season, especially in the brutal NFC West? I don't know. It's going to be a challenge, but he's been exciting and he's been outstanding through the first 4 games. That's for sure.
I hate being in the AFC North, but I would sure hate being in that division as well.
That's brutal. Yeah, it's a brutal division.
Another thing that we have to acknowledge when records are broken, You have to comment on them, and a very big record was broken. Aaron Rodgers, I think at first he like tied the record, but then he went on to break it. But at one point during that day, he threw 420 touchdowns, and an announcer hilariously made a comment that he was smoking out the other team or something along the lines. And when they came back from that, it was like a score alert on ESPN, and they came back to the game, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, I see what you did there," and it was just pretty funny to me that number one, he made that comment full and well knowing what he's doing, and someone was like, "Just don't acknowledge it, don't acknowledge it," but the guy came on and he kept talking about it as well.
So I kind of thought it was. I bet he's had that in his back pocket for weeks or maybe even more, maybe years. He's like, all right, whenever someone throws 400, whenever Rodgers gets to 420 or whoever does anything, I'm going to mention this. I'm going to mention this. I'm going to mention this. And he's been waiting for so long just to say it. And I bet he's been telling everybody that he's going to say it. So kudos on him. Patience paid off. He got the line in, but I bet that's something he's had in his back pocket for a long time.
He's just been waiting. We've talked about all the rookies, but someone else got their first win of the season, and that was the New York Giants in overtime of all places. Or no, yes, were they in overtime as well?
Yeah, they won in overtime
against the Saints.
Yep, in New Orleans. Yeah, so Daniel Jones' first 400-yard game, probably the best game of his career. Upset New Orleans. I don't know what to make of New Orleans. They're
not bad. They might not be great, but they're tough.
They kill Green Bay. They get killed by Carolina. They kill New England, and they lose to the Giants at home. I don't know. I think it's perfect analogy. It's just Jameis Winston, right? I think even when he plays more conservatively and doesn't turn the ball over as much, his teams are still so up and down. It's like wherever Jameis Winston goes, his team embodies his personality. I don't know what to make of this New Orleans team.
I don't think anybody does, but I just like to shout out the Giants, Daniel Jones, Joe Judge, and the family. Good job. I was that game shocked me. I sure didn't pick that to be the one of the winners, but that one shocked me. What also has shocked me, it shouldn't because it's been going on. The Bills are just flat out steamrolling I know they're playing bad teams, but they're like, they say, oh, good teams should win the tough games, but they should, blow out the bad teams. Well, they're blowing out the bad teams. They haven't necessarily beaten the good teams yet, but they've blown out all the bad teams.
Yeah, they've overwhelmed. I mean, they beat Miami 35-0. They killed Washington 43-21, I think, and then they just demolished Houston 40-0. I mean, that's like Alabama. What Alabama or Georgia does in the SEC. You just don't see that in the NFL. That level of consistency. I mean, they're winning. Their last 3 wins are 40-7 is the average score. That's just staggering. Every game in the NFL is usually pretty close. It blows my mind that they're able to do this. Now, like you said, they're not playing the best opponents. They play Kansas City this coming week, Sunday night. That'll tell us how good I think both teams are.
Real litmus test.
Yeah, I think through 4 weeks after overcoming the disappointment to losing to Pittsburgh, Buffalo has shown that, hey, last year was not an anomaly. We're an elite team. We've got talent everywhere on both sides of the ball. And I think it'll continue the rest of the year. I've been surprised by how good they've been.
Another surprise, though, is Sam Darnold. And just a quick shout out. We mentioned it a few weeks ago that he wasn't the problem. It was probably Adam Gase or the Jets as a whole. Hey, he lost, but he's still looking really good. And I just wanted to say, I think he's back. I think he's not back because he was never there. I think he's finally gotten to the level he needs to be at.
Oh, it's a perfect fit. I mean, he's, funny thing, he has the record for rushing touchdowns for a quarterback in the first 4 starts of the season with 5, right? This year, he had 2 against Dallas. He also threw for 2 touchdowns, had a couple turnovers, but otherwise played pretty darn well. I mean, the guy has found a great fit in Carolina. He's got DJ Moore at wide receiver. Christian McCaffrey will come back. Robbie Anderson, is a big play guy. They got Tommy Tremble as a young tight end who's kind of filling in, doing a good job there. So I think they're making big leaps with Darnold. I think Darnold is just a different guy. It's really, really hard to imagine considering how bad he was with the Adam Gase in New York. But he's been awesome with Carolina, and Carolina is very excited to have him. I mean, they're actually a legit contender with Sam Darnold behind center. I mean, who would have ever said those words after the last few years?
I know. But a team, unfortunately, that would love to have Sam Darnold behind center maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they are not looking too hot. And this stat I have heard, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. I say this could finally be the year.
Yeah, I think it's not really Tomlin's fault. It's the fact that Ben Roethlisberger, can't move. I love all the talk in the offseason that he had lost all that weight and had limbered up and was going to be like a 20-something-year-old rolling around back there making all kinds of big plays. I feel like the guy can't take 3 steps without falling down.
You can't put a body that big under that much punishment for so long and think, hey, I'm getting my 30s, getting close to 40s. Maybe I should clean some stuff up and then I'll be fine. I think it might even be in his 40s.
Yeah, but, 15 years of Budlights and chicken wings. There's only so much you can do to get rid of that, and he hasn't gotten rid of it. He's been bad. He hasn't been good. Pittsburgh hasn't been good.
So he's not even hurt anymore, so you can't blame it on that like they did last year. Oh, he's hurt. He's hurt. He needs surgery. Oh, now he lost the weight. Oh, well, he's back again, and he's still not good. So
yeah,
I think he will not have a winning season this season.
No, I don't. I agree with you there. I don't think they're going to be very good. Maybe 6-7 wins at most.
Very briefly, I'd just like to acknowledge that I support Baltimore's choice at the end of the game to keep the rushing record alive. We tied it, and now next week we're trying to beat it. But that's that's 40 some odd games to invest into this. I don't care if it's at the end of the game, and I don't care who it is. If they're losing, I hope they go for it. It would be a shame for the offensive linemen, the running backs, and Lamar himself if they didn't try to keep that streak alive. I think that's a great move by Harbaugh. Keep the morale of the team, players first. Whatever fallout comes, afterwards, their coach gets upset or whatever the case is. I liked Harbaugh's response. Well, I don't remember there being a 16-point play in football, so why did they go for it with 30 seconds left in the game? So, but the Broncos head coach, Fangio, was not pleased that they did that.
Right. So there's a couple things for those of you listening. So Baltimore has just tied the Pittsburgh teams in the 70s for most consecutive 100-yard rushing games in NFL history with 43 or 44, whatever it is now. And late in the game, right, Baltimore had 97 yards rushing. The game's over. There's 10 seconds left. Baltimore has the football after an interception, and they run a play with Lamar Jackson. They get 5 yards, get the record or tie the record. Not really a huge deal. I've got 2 points to this. So the first thing is, if you're going to do that, if you're Baltimore, why are you letting Lamar Jackson run the ball?
Yeah, give it to somebody else.
Give it to somebody else, right? The last thing you want, especially after the flip in Kansas City and how everyone's heart stopped for 2 seconds. Hey, look, give the ball to a running back, give the ball to a receiver on some kind of speed sweep. Don't risk Lamar Jackson. But the second thing, right, is so I remember a game when I played, it was in high school, and it was a playoff game, and we had clinched the game. We were up by double digits with 10 seconds left. We were taking a knee to win the game. And I was the center, and I snapped the ball, and, everyone's kind of taking it easy. And 2 safeties got like a 10-yard head start, and they just sprinted like before the snap, timed it up really well. And as I step into the nose guards, we kind of just hey, last play, just thud it up. I get absolutely depleted by these jokers. They 2 just run full blow into me from a 10-yard head start and send me flying. And I was so pissed because I was the game's over, dude. You lost. Go home. Why are you doing this? So I can understand why, from the Denver side and Fangio side, because no one wants to be that guy. No one wants to be the guy when the game's over. You're taking unnecessary shots. Someone gets hurt or someone gets dinged up. So I can understand where Fangio's look, I told my guys to, not blitz. I could have played a goal line defense and try to blow up Lamar Jackson, but I wasn't going to be that guy.
Is there a way to unceremoniously agree to let him walk the ball set amount of yards?
Yeah, no, it's actually so Brett Favre, it was a long time ago when Michael Strahan was trying to get the single season sack record. The game was over, final game of the season, and Brett Favre basically slid into Strahan for the record, just gave him the record. So it's happened before. People don't really like it. I've got no problem with Baltimore doing it. I just think don't do it with the quarterback because no defensive coach in their right mind wants to take an unnecessary cheap shot at the quarterback because then everyone gets mad at them. No defensive player either. So I've got no problem if Baltimore lines up in a power formation and runs it with Murray or Bell or whoever and tries to get 3 or 4 yards. That's fine. But I mean, as much as I think that Fangio has a little bit of a point, you lost the game by 16 at home. So don't lose by 16 at home if you don't want to complain.
Give up the interception at the end, and we'd never be in that situation.
Yeah. So I think, focus on winning first, and, everything else will kind of take care of itself.
We'll briefly go over this because we already kind of touched on it, but the 49ers had 2 devastating injuries. Trent Williams going down is huge for that offensive line. He's probably the best offensive lineman out there. And then Jimmy G also went down, but the reports say he may be back. So jury's out on whether or not that's going to be a problem. But those are 2 losses that, if prolonged, can really wreck their season.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco just has the injury bug. Last year, they were really hurt. I think the year before that, they had a few injuries too. I'm sorry, in 2018. 2019, they were healthy. They went to the Super Bowl. 2020, last year, they were hurt pretty bad. They only won 6 games, I think, 6 or 7 games. It's tough. I mean, they need Garoppolo back more than Trent Williams, but Trent Williams, I mean, in our top 5 where we ranked O-lineman, he was number 1 on my list. The guy is a great left tackle, great run blocker, great pass blocker. I mean, I check out that episode where we talk about him a good bit. I think missing him is really big, especially since they're not deep at running back. He gives them so much flexibility as an offense.
Mostert's already out for the season.
Yeah, so it's both of them are big injuries, obviously, but I gotta feel bad for San Francisco and their fans because that's tough to go back-to-back years with major injuries.
Trust me, I know full and well what it's like to lose a starting left tackle like that, but well, they can still power on, like you said, as long as Jimmy G's good.
Yeah, as Garoppolo, if Garoppolo plays, they can win games. I think, which I think he will. I think he'll come back soon.
Now, rounding out our weekly review segment, there's a few acquisitions that happened. I will talk about 2 of them briefly, and I'll let you get into the last one because I have a question for you. One, Jamie Collins has done his yearly get paid big bucks by another team, play poorly, and then get traded or get cut back to New England, and where he performs like a superstar. Then the cycle repeats itself. He goes to Bill and is like, "Hey, Bill, I want, $20 million a year." And Bill's like, just go somewhere else, and then you'll be right back afterwards. And he'll be like, "Okay." So, the Browns, Lions, there's another team in there that I'm not thinking of. But he's done it multiple times, and he always comes back to New England for a couple of years afterwards. He's back. The New England also, Stephon Gilmore started off the year on the PUP list. And somehow there's some miscommunication. They said he was cut, he was released, and then I guess the paperwork hadn't gone through, and they might have gotten an offer. Now he has officially been traded to the Carolina Panthers. So that defense we talked about that was good, Sam Darnold, they get a little bit better if Gilmore isn't even a sliver of what he was, because he was a pretty good lockdown corner.
Yep.
Finally, this is into your neck of the woods. Jalen Smith was cut by the Cowboys, or his contract was terminated. He was released. They lost a substantial amount of money eating on that contract. It was like $16 million or something like that. Is there a problem? Is there a reason why they decided to cut him?
Yeah, so he had a great year in 2018, took a step back in 2019, and was terrible last year in 2020. He's been a rotational player this year. The fact of the matter is he is not as good as his contract, not even close, right? They have Micah Parsons. They got Keanu Neal, who's back healthy. Leighton Vander Esch, they kind of like more as a short-term, Mike linebacker kind of guy. They got Jabril Cox as another guy in the linebacker rotation, a young guy, rookie out of LSU that they really like. So I think what this comes down to is it just isn't a good fit, right? You're paying a guy a lot of money. You're not going to play him very much. I think it's easier for the team, the organization, to just get rid of him now. I think he's a character guy. I think he's a good guy. I just think, in their mind, they're like, look, let's see who we have at some of these other linebacker positions, like a Jabril Cox or get Keanu Neal more reps, and obviously Micah Parsons. Why are we giving this guy reps, when we could take away from developing another young player? Let's cut him now. Let's develop the young player. And, if they cut him in the offseason, they'd have to eat the money anyway.
Well, is this indicative of any way? They must have at least tried to trade him.
Oh, I think they did, right? I think his contract was just so bad, right? I think they tried to trade him in the offseason, right? There were stories that they were trying to dump him, but it was so bad. It's kind of the opposite of the Gilmore situation where Gilmore was hurt and definitely didn't want to play in New England. And so New England was trying to trade Gilmore, but everyone wanted Gilmore, but they all knew Gilmore didn't want to be in New England. So it's hard to make a trade there. The exact opposite was in Dallas. No one wanted Jalen wanted to be in Dallas, but nobody wanted Jalen outside of Dallas. So they couldn't find a way to trade him. So they just cut him to get rid of it and just move on. And look, I think it's the right move, right? The team is playing pretty well. They've got a lot of young guys on defense, keep that momentum going and save some cap for the long term, right? Because it allows them to maybe make a big signing in the offseason at another position of need or lock up a young guy who's been playing pretty well.
Well, that makes sense. So we'll see. I think that's all I have on our highlights and weekly review. Any other topics you thought we should talk about?
No, I think that was good. I think we hit all the big ones there. I mean, it's hard to come up with so many with all the Urban Meyer stories and all that going on.
I know, it's just dominated the news cycle for so long. Got to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
You want to warm me up a little bit before we get into our deep dive topic this week? Hit me with a little trivia action.
All right, I got you. So here we go. You're going to have 5 seconds to answer. And then if you need a hint, I'll give you a hint, and then you'll have 3 seconds to answer. So this is a little bit dated question, but I think you get this, and we'll get this, and it's in line with our deep dive topic this week. So here we go. So last weekend, the Jacksonville Jaguars have tied the second longest losing streak in the NFL at 19 games. What is the longest losing streak in NFL history, or what team has the longest losing streak in NFL history, I should say?
I know probably who it is.
All right,
one of 2 teams I'm thinking.
I'll give you
I'll give you my first guess, and if it's not that, then you can give me a hint.
Okay.
Is it the Lions?
No. So the Lions, that's close. It's a good guess because of how bad Detroit was a few years ago. So this is a team. This happened in the 1970s, and it was an expansion franchise. And this team is feeling pretty good nowadays, though. That's my hint. 3.
Was it
2,
Baltimore?
1. No. So this is the Tampa Bay Bucks, right? When they were an expansion franchise in 1976, they went 0-14, and then 77, they went 0-12 to start the year. So they have the NFL record, 26 straight losses, which hasn't been met yet. And we'll see if Urban and the Jaguars can accomplish that feat this season. See if they can tie or break that one.
Yeah, I don't think I heard that one. So that's good. Get to learn. I was thinking them or the Lions or the Browns, but the Browns probably were close, but they had like a random win in there one year, so it kind of probably like broke the cycle.
Yeah, they have like 3 different 15 losses in a row streaks. They had wins at just enough times to avoid a really bad streak.
But you alluded to it. Our deep dive topic this week: do teams give up or tank when off to a bad start or having a bad season? So I guess we're saying, does a team, is that a real thing?
Yeah.
So you want to start?
Yeah, I'll get us going. So in my experience, it absolutely is, right? And I think it's not quite what you think in terms of giving up, but I've been on plenty of bad teams, at least in the college level, where there is definitely an attitude shift, right? And you're very competitive and you still want to win and you're trying to win games, but there is a little bit of self-preservation. And what I mean by that is a lot of people don't understand, at college and another layer of magnitude higher in the NFL, how much football season sucks, right? It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of lifting. It's a lot of running. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. You're worn out all of the time.
Well, I can attest you were gone for 3 to 4 hours a day at least one time. That's not counting like meetings and things like that you had earlier on the day, but for practice, you're gone forever.
Oh yeah. And it's really mentally and physically strenuous stuff. Like this isn't, light work by any means. And you miss all your weekends. You have that kind of thing going on while everybody else is doing other things. Now, obviously NFL, that's their job. So it's a little different, but it still wears on the psyche. It really does wear you down and bog teams down. So if a team starts off slow, you do definitely see that sort of, okay, let me wind down my mentality a little bit and kind of prepare myself for the off season. prepare myself if I get cut or traded or things like that. That doesn't mean players still play the same level of hard and coaches still coach at the same level of hard and they still want to win games and they're still competing, but it's just a different attitude. When you're a contender, you're doing whatever you can to, win that big playoff game or get to the playoff game or win that big rivalry game or something like that. When you're not a contender, it's a little bit more of, okay, if we lose or if we don't win or, whatever, all right, let's focus more long-term on the future and, staying healthy and thinking about the off season. Whereas the contenders are all about now.
We have a same, but different approach to this question. I said they absolutely do tank. Teams do. Not the whole team, though. I think coaches and players have too much riding to actually physically tank. Their jobs are on the line. Paychecks are on the line. Playing into contract years, no player's going to tank going into a contract year. They're going to try to get all the stats that they can. Who does tank, in my opinion, is the front office. And like you said, they get prepared for the next season. They will start to Jacksonville, Texans, trade away Texans did it completely wrong, but they still did it. Trade away key pieces to try to position themselves through draft or in salary cap words, position themselves in a better position for the following year. Like Jacksonville traded away all these pieces. You got Miles Jacks that left, Leonard Fournette left. A ton of pieces on that AFC Championship team got picked apart the very next season. They knew they need to get move on from Blake Bortles. He wasn't the answer, so they just try to position themselves to get to the Trevor Lawrence spot that they're in now. The Texans failed because they trade really good players for absolutely nothing, so that's crazy. And then they trade 2 draft picks for a relatively high-end left tackle, but that was a lot of 2 first-round picks for Laramie Tunsil. Seems like a reach to me. But what they do, they trade players for draft capital. They're not giving their teams the best chance to win, and they try to, if they feel the bad season coming on, maybe mitigate damage done to their job by saying, look what I did. I traded said player for said amount of draft picks or said other player. And then they can say, but this coach isn't winning. I've gotten us this, we're not doing good, but the reason I did that is because the coach hasn't been winning. This is why I do that. And I think it's crazy. I go back to there was a week, because near the end of the season, teams rest their starters all the time, especially if they're not going to make it. And that really screws up the playoff picture for a lot of other teams. Teams are counting continuously on those week 16, week 17 games that to get into the playoffs, they need X to lose, this team to win, this team to lose. And if you're resting your players, that's not going to happen. And so, in response to this, and I want to run these by you, I read this great article, and it was by Fansided. I think I've used them before. Go them. Fansided, the authority on all NFL, obviously. Everyone knows who that is. But they had some ideas on how to counteract tanking by GMs and by teams. And I thought they were very interesting. I'm going to run them by you. Tell me what you think, okay? First one is one that is used in other sports. Draft lottery. It's the least enticing to me, but the final the 14 worst teams that season are eligible to be entered into this draft lottery. And then they lottery off the first 4 picks of the draft to those teams. That way, there's no reason to tank. If you're in the bottom 14 echelon, there's no reason to go lower. There's no incentive to try to be the worst team. 0-17 isn't going to get you anything. So you try to do as good as you can as long as you're in that 14 game or 14 team block. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, so I think the one difference, so obviously the NBA uses the draft lottery. I think the difference between the NBA and the NFL is how big injuries play a role.
Yeah.
Right. I think we talked about San Francisco earlier, and I remember a few years ago when Romo got hurt And then this was a team that won 12 games. Romo gets hurt. They lose 12 games. So they get a top 5 pick in Elliott. And they drafted Ezekiel Elliott. So that's something where, well, the team had a lot of injuries. That's why they were that bad. They weren't really that bad of a team. I think with the lottery, in NBA, you're trying to discourage some of that tanking because, injuries don't play as much of a role, smaller rosters, it's easier to bench players. In the NFL, because injuries play such a big factor a lot of times, I mean, sometimes really bad teams record-wise actually have a lot of talent. They just didn't play, or they had a rough schedule, or they lost a lot of close games. I mean, a good example is look at, I think, like the Colts, right? The Colts are 1-3, and they have a really good roster. They just had injuries to Wentz and to Leonard and to Quentin Nelson to overcome, and it just hasn't gone well for them.
Like I get it, but in a sense, there are a couple teams that happened to. I think their point is, yeah, that stuff happened, but there's also other stuff that blatantly happens, the cutting down of every player on the Texans, the trimming of the Jacksonvilles, the ineptitude of the Browns. There's these things where the Browns, they sucked for a long time. A lot of high top 5 picks, but look where they are now. They're one good quarterback away from having a great team because they have so many first-round picks that they've added into their repertoire. But I think ideas like this, not the lottery one, that's not the one I'm the most interested in, but it kind of hurts the competitiveness of the league. The second one I'll run by you. Now, this one is very different. The whole season's the same. The final 4 games of the season, they are the indicators of your draft position. Playoff teams are not included in this, but because obviously they're going to go on. But for the final 4 games of the season, you move up in the draft order if you win, and you move down in the draft order if you lose. So if you were at number 4 and you win 4 games, you move up to number 1, and so on.
I kind of like that, except maybe a little different twist, right? Because you never know how the schedule's going to work out. And so a team that was really bad all year, trying to get a number 1 overall pick, they play a playoff team that's resting their starters, so they're able to get a few easy wins. How about this as a little twist, right? How about you take the bottom 4 teams and they have to play each other in a playoff?
That gets me to my final point. Perfect that you brought that up. What more does the NFL like more than anything else than being able to market more football?
Yeah.
The worst 8 teams in the league compete in a single elimination bracket style playoff to determine the top 8 draft picks.
Yeah, I think that's great, right? Do it on Thursday night. Don't let it conflict with the regular playoffs at all, Thursday or Wednesday night. But I think that's great. I kind of like that, right? And I think the teams will like that too, because it gives them more. Imagine like Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence competing and getting more game reps and things like that.
And it kind of puts you on the same playing field. If it's the worst 8 teams, you feel like, hey, I got a shot. I can play Tennessee. I can play the Giants. I can play Jags, I can play the Jets. It's any one of those teams,
I guess the one thing you have to worry about is guys like Bill Belichick or whatever, if they're not going to make the playoffs.
Tanking to the bottom 8 to somehow try to get in there for the first round pick.
It
makes things a little bit trickier,
Yeah, it definitely does. No, I like it. That's a good idea. I think that definitely would be good. I think the NFL could get behind that, right? I think it would be a good way too if they did it smart. They could go to smaller markets, and play the games, site kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it has some legs. Will they ever do it? Maybe. You never know if they get the idea.
You know what? Because they always talk about the preseason is to give the young guys reps. Get rid of the preseason and play these extra games at the end for the bad teams. They still get the young guys reps, right? Because you're still playing the games. But we get rid of preseason and we get more real games at the end that actually contribute to something.
Oh, yeah. And it has no negative consequences. If you have a pretty good team, you're not going to subject yourself to injury. You're going to have a safe draft spot. Yep. But if you're the worst 8 teams in the league, the top 10 picks, I don't see why you wouldn't. I don't know why you wouldn't want to battle. Even from 2-1 is a huge difference.
Yeah. But can you imagine, though, the starting quarterback of one of those bad teams, right? Because number 1 overall pick is usually
job.
Yeah,
He
he's
tanks
got
to number 8. You got to keep me, guys.
Yeah, that's exactly. He throws 8 picks. It's like, hey, I'm sorry, there's no quarterbacks left at 8. Whereas like you had Sam Darnold last year would have been trying to win these playoff games, these sort of playoff games to get his Jets number 1 so they could draft Trevor Lawrence to replace him. Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty wild.
But I just thought those were some pretty cool ideas.
No, that is
a good way to think about it.
It's really good. I like that.
Any more on the subject?
No, I think that's good, man. I think we're ready to move on to worst to first.
All right. I think you started last week. I will start this week, and then you can start your top 5 first, okay? And we are going from bottom up. So our worst team to first team.
Yep.
We have the NFC South this week. And now I'm going to make a lot of people angry. In the number 4 spot, I have the New Orleans Saints. They had a fluke win week 1 to the Green Bay Packers. They lost to the Giants, who suck. And you can't tell me you lose to the Giants. I haven't seen anything else out of them. Like, they've really not been all that impressive outside of week 1. And the offense was bad against the Giants. They were just bad. So I have them there. And I have the Falcons in my number 3 spot because the Falcons have lost a lot of close games to a lot of good teams. They did beat the Giants. So that's my indicator there. That's my reason to move them slightly up. They lost a very close game to Washington, who I think is a good team, and I think questions are out on their quarterback, whether he's the answer or not. But I think the roster as a whole, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is tough. Their front 4 is pretty good. Their safeties are pretty good. I'm not really sure on their corners. I don't know who they are off the top of my head. But they always play teams tough. Washington does, and the Falcons played them tough. I think the Falcons are just a slightly better team than the Saints. We'll see here soon because I'm sure they're going to play each other here soon. But that's who I have in my number 3 spot. Now, as I have the Giants as our defining factor, there's another team that is my defining factor in the 2 and the 1 spot. My number 2 team is the Carolina Panthers. They have had a great season so far, but they lost to the Cowboys. There's another team who's obviously in number 1 who beat the Cowboys. And other than that, that's the difference. So the Panthers, they beat a lot of bad teams, mediocre teams, and then they played a good team who I would consider the Cowboys to be a good team, and they lost. Number 1, the Buccaneers. They've played a lot of tough teams. The only team they've lost to is a team that I thought was possibly the best team in the NFC. And the Rams, they lost kind of ugly game to them, but they beat the Cowboys at the beginning of the season. I don't know if it would go that same way now, but they did beat the Cowboys at the beginning of the season, who's a good team. They battled through emotional tundra and tons of rain in New England, gutted that win out. I think they're the best of this division. It's a tough division. The top 2 teams are really good, but that's what I got.
Yeah, I think I agree with you a lot of it. I think where we differ, I've got Atlanta at 4 for really 2 reasons. Their defense is bad, really bad. And they've been bad for a while to the point where I can't trust them to be any sort of quality team because they're a bottom 5 defense in the NFL year in and year out. The joke is, right, Atlanta's always going to blow the leads. Well, the reason is because their defense stinks, right? They gave up 45 to Tampa. They gave up 34 to Washington. The Giants moved the ball all over them, even though they didn't score a whole lot, right? They got dominated by Philly week 1. So this Atlanta defense is really bad. And I also want to bring up Kyle Pitts, right? The phenom from Florida. He has 15 catches and no touchdowns in 4 games. Guy hasn't been productive. He's not making any big plays. He's supposed to be an elite guy. I think for me with Atlanta, they don't have the weapons, right? Matt Ryan is still a good quarterback. I think their offense is still good. Without the dynamic firepower of a guy like Pitts was supposed to bring in that really bad defense, I think they're the worst team in that division. Number 3 is New Orleans. I don't know what to make of New Orleans. I already talked about it. How can they dominate Green Bay, then get absolutely dominated by Carolina, run all over the Patriots, and then get physically beat up, give up a lead, and lose in overtime to a bad Giants team? I don't understand it. I think it's Jameis Winston's up and down is translated into the entire roster. I think they're going to be an up and down team all year. I put them at number 3. I don't think they're a playoff team. I think they're a roller coaster, but I don't think they're a playoff team. Number 2 is Carolina. This is a physical team. I was very impressed with their toughness and physicality. They're not as talented on defense as they're kind of made out to be. They were averaging giving up 45 yards per game. Dallas ran for 240, right? They kind of got ran over a little bit. Dallas got 5 sacks on that offensive line. But we talked about Darnold. I mean, the guy has turned it around. He can run the ball effectively. He's been a weapon in the red zone. He threw for a lot of yards and threw for 2 scores. He's taking a little bit better care of the football. He's scoring a lot of points for the team. I think Carolina's a playoff team. I think they got a chance to win 10, 11 games and maybe sneak into the playoffs, especially when Christian McCaffrey gets back and that becomes a whole more dynamic offense. Number 1, I mean, just like you, it's Tampa. I mean, look, they fought through the emotional turmoil, like you said, of playing in New England with Brady's return. I just think that they outclassed New England in terms of talent on both sides of the ball. I think they're just so deep everywhere. I mean, Richard Sherman adds another layer. Obviously, they've had injuries in the secondary, but they're getting guys that are great at linebacker. Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vade in the middle are just the best defensive tackle pairing probably in the NFL. They've got a good, tough offensive line, multiple running backs, great at receiver, obviously Brady. I honestly am curious if Brady takes a step back this year because eventually it has to happen, right? I mean, he can't physically maintain this level of play indefinitely. So I think Tampa could potentially, after they lost to the Rams and the way they played against New England, I wonder if this offense is maybe declining a little bit, but I still think they're the class in the division. And I still think they win the division. So I guess to recap mine, I got Tampa at 1, Carolina at 2, New Orleans at 3, and then Atlanta at 4.
And I was the same, except Falcons at 3 and New Orleans at 4. So I will be honest with you, our top 5 this week, we chose to do the top 5 non-rookie worst players and worst starters in the NFL right now. I'll be honest with you, this one was kind of tough for me to get the right amount of stats versus eye test versus to make decisions. And I'll let you go first with yours, and then I'll do mine. And I just want to see if we overlap at all.
Yeah, definitely. So, all right. So top 5 worst players in the NFL, they have to have significant playing time and non-rookies. So my number 5 is Daniel Sorensen. He's a safety for Kansas City. Look, this guy plays on a bad defense. Kansas City has 2nd most points given up in the NFL. They got absolutely torched by Philly. They didn't force a punt against Philly the entire game, and Philly is a decent offense, but not a great offense by any means. I love watching Kansas City games because they talk about Sorensen, about, they like putting him in the box, to support the run. The reason they put him in the box to support the run is because he sucks in coverage, right? It's a liability in coverage. Obviously, with the money and the talent they have in all other positions, they have to, have weaknesses somewhere. Safety is one of them. And they have Daniel Sorensen is definitely the biggest weakness there at safety because they got to play Matthew. They got to pay Matthew. So they put Daniel Sorensen, they try and hide him, but he stinks. He's not very good. Number 4, N'Keal Harry for the New England Patriots. This guy was a 1st-round pick. This was the guy that they drafted when they still had Brady as a way, hey, we're supporting you. Here's going to be a stud wide receiver to help you. N'Keal Harry. I mean, the guy has 46 career catches, and he has 1 catch this year for 10 yards in 4 games. He gets significant playing time without actually appearing to even play the game. Like, the guy is just not good as a wide receiver. Maybe he's a great blocker or something. I don't know, but he's my number 4 worst player in the NFL. Number 3, I'm going to pick on him a little bit, and that's Jared Goff. I don't know how, but he's had some of the wackiest turnovers to start the year in the NFL, right? He had the loose football, like when he just dropped the ball against Green Bay on Monday night. He had that crazy snap fumble where he was walking up to the center and the shotgun snap bounced off his chest and went into the Chicago Bears defender's arms. I mean, it's just blooper reel. And the real knock against Goff is how good the Rams and Stafford have been with him gone. because it's essentially the same offense, right? Everything is the same with the Rams, except they change quarterbacks, and it's a completely different team. So to me, that's telling me, hey, picking on Goff here, you were the problem, man. They got rid of you. They're a lot better. That's why I have him at number 3. Number 2, I'm going in with another quarterback. I'm going Jacoby Brissett, right? He starts in Miami now. Now, this is a guy, I don't get it. Wherever he goes and teams play him, the teams immediately decide that they want to get another guy. So he played in New England, right? Was a backup. New England shipped him off to Indianapolis, right? Andrew Luck gets hurt. So they play Brissett. They're so bad. So they bring in Phillip Rivers, right? So after Phillip Rivers is gone, like, okay, we got Brissett. Do we want to even maybe go with Brissett? He's had a few years to develop. They think about it for 5 seconds and they're like, no, we're getting Carson Wentz. So they ship him off to Miami. So he goes to Miami with Tua, who like, well, do we, Tua's not playing great. Do we want to stick with Tua? Do we want to play Brissett? No, we're keeping Brissett on the bench. Tua gets hurt. I mean, the guy comes in and he actually stinks so bad. I think he's averaging like 5 yards an attempt, which if it's not the worst in the NFL, it's pretty close. I mean, Brissett, everywhere he goes, teams immediately decide we want a different quarterback. All right, speaking of quarterbacks, my worst player in the NFL is any quarterback that's coached by Adam Gase. Right. I think at this point, we've decided after watching Darnold that any poor coach or any poor quarterback that has to be coached by Gase is just going to have a world of hurt. Ryan Tannehill had issues with Gase in Miami. He goes to Tennessee. He's a much better player. We've seen what's happening with Darnold. I don't know how, but Adam Gase ruins quarterbacks. So any player who's the coaches plays under Coach Adam Gase, you're going to be the worst quarterback and probably the worst player in the NFL, according to my list.
Beware.
Yeah. So I know normally we like to have a underrated worst player or underrated player in our top 5. I felt it would have been mean to throw in an underrated worst player. So I just kept it to 5 this time. I'll see what you have to say. Okay. But going from 1 to 5 back down, my worst player is any quarterback coached by Adam Gase. Number 2 is Jacoby Brissett. Number 3 is Jared Goff. Number 4 is N'Keal Harry. And number 5 is Daniel Sorensen.
All right. We did not necessarily overlap, but I don't think that's a bad. So shuffling fast because I wrote mine in a different order than you. Starting from the bottom, okay. 5 would be my best worst player, and number 1 being my worst player. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My best worst player, DB for Kansas City, Shavarius Ward, same breath as Sorensen. He ranked 101 out of 109 in pass coverage, which is pretty bad. He ranked 63 out of 95 in run defense. He plays for Kansas City. They have a terrible secondary. They get burnt all the time. It's just embarrassing when they're out on the field, to be honest with you. I pick them myself. I can be unbiased sometimes like that. And my number 4 slot, I have Alejandro Villanueva for Baltimore. I am specifically, he had one great game at left tackle, but when he was not at left tackle, he was awful. He's a decent run blocker. But that's pretty easy when you're blocking with Lamar Jackson behind the ball. He makes everybody look like a good run blocker. But he's an atrocious pass blocker. And he has tied second in the NFL this season. He's allowed 3 sacks in 4 games, which is pretty bad. So he also allowed numerous pressures, and he used to play for the Steelers. So even though he's on my team, I feel like I need to say that he sucks. So he's much better at left tackle, but when he's at right tackle, he was terrible. Probably the worst player on the field. I couldn't wait for him to get off the field fast enough. In my number 3 spot, I have Uchenna Nwosu for the Chargers. He is ranked dead last out of all edge defenders. I don't really know what to say other than he is terrible at everything. I think he's made 1 splash play, but he is bad at the run, he's bad in the pass, and he's bad in pressure, getting QB pressure. He's just terrible as a player. And that's kind of the theme of the rest of this list. In my number 2 spot, I have Alex Anzalone, a linebacker for Detroit, 74 out of 81 of all linebackers. Terrible run defender. He's an average pass rusher, but he's the worst coverage linebacker in the entire NFL grades-wise. He is just, I watched him when Baltimore played Detroit. He was truly terrible. He was getting beat over the middle all night long. All of those big chunk passes up the middle were on his watch. He was actually a terrible player, and there's only one player that I think is worse than him in the NFL right now, and that's Ben Roethlisberger. He stinks. The guy's old, he's slow, and he sucks. He ranks second to last in all quarterbacks in every category. He's thrown 4 picks to only 4 touchdowns. He has -3 rushing yards. He is not good at running the ball anymore. He's not good at throwing the ball anymore. And like you said, he can't take 2 steps without tripping over his own 2 feet. Like, get him out of here. And I know out of 5 guys, you're like, Andrew, you only have 2 people. One was a potential. He was a Steeler. Now he's a Raven. You have 1 Steeler on there. Tell me, you got to at least have 1 more. I did pick a 6th person because it's my underrated worst player. Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Steelers. His sheer amount of regression that he has made from last year to this year is staggering. Mike Tomlin's this good defensive coach with the great defensive scheme. They have the zone blitz, all of this crazy stuff they do. And Minkah Fitzpatrick was amazing last year. He stepped in and got like 3 picks really early on, game changer on the back end. But this year, he has been an okay run defender, which isn't his job, so limited usage as a run defender, but he's literally a liability in coverage. He hasn't gotten any turnovers. I just like, what happened from last year to this year? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good list. I love the Roethlisberger pick because he's been garbage. I agree with you 100%.
Fitzpatrick just blows my mind. How you can go from being worth 2 first-round draft picks or whatever, or 1st and 2nd, wherever they traded for him, to being so bad.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hadn't even thought about Fitzpatrick. I mean, really, that Pittsburgh team has probably been just a huge disappointment last 3 weeks.
If your name's not TJ Watt, get off the field.
And even he's been off the field. He's been hurt.
Yeah, so maybe that's why he hasn't been on the list.
There you go. I like it. It's a good list. I like it. That was a fun topic, man. That's kind of a different way to think about it, right? Trying to find, because you got to find a player that is good enough to play, but still stinks.
Which is hard because you're playing the NFL.
Right.
But,
yeah.
And if you stink, you typically aren't going to last too long. But some of these guys, they just don't have an option.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've been watching Sorensen get beat deep for 28 years. So, like, I don't like, and we were on the same mindset with Kansas City secondary. They are so bad on the back end of that defense. Yeah. They have Tyrann Mathieu as a playmaker and then nobody else.
But he's not great in coverage either. He just makes a few big picks here and there. But yeah, he's like, he gets burned just as often as he gets picks.
Oh, definitely. But it's just, I mean, yeah, he's a playmaker, not really a every down, block down defender, but yeah, they're bad on defense. They're bad. I'm glad we kind of saw that eye to eye. I was curious where you were going to go with some of these. That was good. That was a good topic. I like that.
I thought it was. Yeah. Moving to our weekly pick'em. Would you like to? Well, you cover the first one, and then I'll cover the one that you don't pick.
Okay, so I think the game of the week in a lot of people's eyes, it's Sunday Night Football. It's Bills Chiefs, right? The Chiefs had the 2-game losing streak there. They come back with the win at Philly. It's a good win. They score 40, even though their defense was atrocious. And like we talked about, the Bills are killing everybody.
Oh yeah.
So I think the real challenge here is, can Mahomes take care of the football, and can Josh Allen keep up with Mahomes' offense? Because they're going to score points. Kansas City is going to score points. I think Josh Allen has been inconsistent at times this year. They've relied on the running game from special teams and a lot of defense for a lot of their scoring. But the good news is he doesn't have to do a whole lot because Kansas City's secondary is so bad that he'll have a lot to take advantage of. I think it's a big game for Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley if you want to look for fantasy guys. I think they're going to put all kinds of yards. I think it all hinges on, can Mahomes do a better job take care of the football? The guy has 3 picks in his last 2 games. He had a really bad pick against Baltimore. He hasn't done a great job. His offensive line is getting worse. I mean, they're able to scheme and create good concepts to move the ball and make big plays. And obviously Tyreek Hill and Kelsey are still weapons, but I don't think they're quite as good as they used to be, right? They're having to do so much more. And I think the more you rely on a lot of that scheme and trick play stuff, especially early in the year, it wears down. It doesn't last forever. They're already 2-2. To me, this feels like a real statement loss and statement win for Buffalo, statement loss for Kansas City. I think Buffalo wins this game. I think they have a lot of momentum. I think they want revenge for how they lost in the playoffs last year. I think Josh Allen is going to play well and torch that defense. And I don't trust Patrick Mahomes to take care of the football the way he's played the last few weeks.
I agree with you. So who are you going to take in this one?
So I got Buffalo. I got Buffalo winning this game.
I agree with you. And even though he threw for a pretty solid 5 touchdowns last week, he still had a bad pick last week as well. And it's all of this, when they were young and fast and, had a great O-line, you can do all these crazy no-look passes, but eventually no one does that stuff for a reason. No one throws no-look passes or weird shuffle passes because eventually you're going to get picked off. You're going to get caught. People are going to be like, hey, be on your toes. Even if he's not looking at you, there's a chance he's going to throw it if a guy's open. And people are jumping his no-look pass routes, and he had a bad pick last week as well. So I'm glad we're on the same page on that one. I would agree with you with the Bills. And our second game of the week, which is also a very big game, 2 great games this week, Browns versus the Chargers. The Browns and the Chargers are very interesting to me. I couldn't think of this earlier, but now that I see my notes, I remember what I was going to say about the Browns and the Chargers. If they traded quarterbacks, the Chargers could be a much worse team, and the Browns would be one of my picks to go to the Super Bowl with Justin Herbert under the helm. They would literally be unstoppable. But they don't. They have who they have. Now, do I pick the weapons and the defense, especially the pass rush of the Browns, and subpar quarterback play? Do I pick subpar weapons comparatively? The Chargers have pretty good weapons. Eckler's a beast. Allen's pretty good. Mike Williams pretty good. They don't necessarily have a tight end so much anymore. Henry's gone, but this other guy has been so-so. Do I take that with way above average quarterback play?
Yeah, so for me, it's all about, and you bring up a great point, right? The teams are parallels of each other, right? Young former coordinators, head coaches. You got Stefanski in Cleveland. You've got Staley in LA.
I like Staley.
He seems to be a really smart guy, really energetic guy. I think he's got the whole organization on board, and you see it, right? They're 3-1, good start to the year. I think for me, I trust Herbert on sheer talent, playmaking, leadership, basically every box that you want to check more than I trust Baker Mayfield.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, I understand Baker Mayfield can get streaky and he's liable to go out there and, 20 of 25 for 330 and 3 touchdowns and make us all look like idiots and win a couple big games. I just don't see it. I think the Chargers are really, really good. They dominated a pretty good Vegas team. They beat Kansas City in Kansas City. They lost a heartbreaker at home against Dallas, who's turned out to be a decent team. The Chargers are a really good team. I think this is a statement win, as Buffalo was a statement. Buffalo beating Kansas City was a statement win for them. I think it's the same level for LA because Cleveland was a playoff team last year, right? They won a playoff game. Everyone, Baker's on TV. We hear a lot about the Myles Garrett, Cleveland Browns. They seem to be on everybody's Sports Illustrated, Sporting News, ESPN playoff, darling. I think this is a statement win for the Chargers to come out and say, hey, we are a legitimate football team. We are a legitimate contender. And I think they win. I think they win decisively.
2 in a row for them as well. They had a decisive win last week against the Raiders, who I was looking this up in my research. They have 2 top 5 pass rushers grade-wise for this season, Crosby and Nassib.
Yep.
Carl Nassib. They're both ranked pretty highly pass rush. Crosby's getting home quite a lot. I witnessed it week 1, and I've seen it every time I watch them play. But they killed the Raiders. I think they can kill the Browns. I think this game gets out of hand if they're not careful. So
yeah,
I agree with what you're saying. You agree with what I'm saying. I will give you my game to watch this week, underdog pick of the great game of the week. And I like to call this game the Retirement Bowl. This is the chance that Urban Meyer has. As much media attention, this game, for me in my head, the level of gravitas built into this game is so important. If he loses this game to a Titans team that just lost to the Jets, it's like a bad team can beat the Titans. You have no more excuses. If he loses this game, his career is likely over in Jacksonville. Whether it's immediately or not, I do not know. But he has to redeem himself. Basically what I'm saying is if he comes out and wins this game, I feel like he's climbing back into the good graces of the organization. If he can come and find a way to get his nose to the grindstone, get back in the play drawing books, get a great scheme cooked up with all of his coordinators, and they go out and win this game, I don't even care if you win by an inch. You win this game, I think that goes a long way in your not so heartfelt apologies to make them seem, hey, I'm not much of a speaker as far as owning up to my poor decisions, but what I do is I know how to get back into the office and game plan and win games. So that's why I think this game is so big. That's why I say this game is so important. And it is literally the biggest game of the hit Trevor Lawrence's life. This is bigger than any national championship he has played in. But even so, I have the Titans by a mile. I think they're going to blow them out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. This is a big game for Urban Meyer. The team has to, if they come out and they get killed, I think Urban Meyer may not make it to Monday, right? If they lose 35-7 or something like that,
probably won't fly home with the team.
Yeah, exactly. He'll have another reason not fly home with the team. I think it's if the team comes out and looks like they've given up and they've lost all faith in the coaching staff, I think they get rid of Urban Meyer. I think this is kind of his Custer's last stand. They don't even necessarily have to win the game, but if they have a strong showing, even if they lose a close game or at least play really well, then I think he's okay. But if they come out and stink it up, then I think he's done. My kind of underdog pick of the week. This one's going to surprise you. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I looked and I noticed Cincinnati is a 3-point home underdog to Green Bay. Now, I know it's Green Bay and I know it's Aaron Rodgers. He's been on a tear. They've won 3 straight games. They've looked really good doing it. But Cincinnati has played well, right? Their only loss was when Burrow threw a 3 straight picks and was disastrous against Chicago. They dominated Chicago on both sides of the ball. They just had the turnovers. They're 3-1 outside of that. I think they're playing with a lot of confidence. I think Burrow is averaging more than 9 yards per passing attempt, right? They have a good offense. Jamar Chase, everyone thought he was a bust. People were saying he couldn't see the football. He's played great. He's been a great deep threat.
Looking like offensive rookie of the year.
He's right up there, right? I think I think he's probably the favorite, him and Mac Jones at this point. So I think this is a big sneaky game. And here's the other little secret here, right? Cincinnati has had, because they played Thursday night last week, they've had 11 days to prepare. Yeah. Right. I think that gives them a little bit of an edge in this game. And I think they surprised a lot of people. I would pick Cincinnati here. I think it's an aggressive pick, but I would not be surprised if they won this game, 27-17, 24-21, right? Because, I think Green Bay, they're Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and then a bunch of guys. And I think Cincinnati's got a decent little core that they're building up. And I think they're going to move the ball in that Green Bay defense. And I think they're going to win the game.
All right. Well, I don't necessarily agree with your choice of winner, but I do agree that I think Cincinnati is going to surprise them.
Yeah.
I do not like that Joe Burrow has fleshed out the way he has. I wish he was more the first game of the season, less of the next 3 games, because they're looking pretty good.
Yeah. He's played well. And we, there's been a lot of talk of Prescott's coming back from his injury. Joe Burrow has come back from his injury and played like a stud. He's averaging more than 9 yards.
What more could you want?
Yeah. He's been great. Great job on his part.
All right. Nick, how you feel? Did you eat a good dinner?
I feel good, man. I'm ready to do a good old fashioned run right here and see how we do.
Let's check your gut. Last week for our gut check segment where we pick all of the games, we did okay. I was 9-7. You were 10-6. You got one up on me, but we were
Both
just
playoff
okay.
records, right?
Yeah, we're winning. We're not the Steelers. We're winning records. So let's see if we can capitalize on a positive record and keep the momentum going.
Let's do it.
All right. So I'm just going to clarify because we've already picked 4 games, so to speak. We both have the Bills. Both have the Chargers.
Yep.
Who do you have? Jags, Titans.
Titans.
All right. I have Green Bay. You have Cincy.
Correct.
All right. LA, Seahawks.
I think LA comes back from a loss. I think they beat Seattle.
I agree with you. Who do you got? Jets, Falcons.
Atlanta.
I have Atlanta as well. I have them. They got to come back sometime. Who do you have? Patriots, Texans.
I think New England showed a lot of heart in that game Sunday night, and I think Houston's a dumpster fire. I go Patriots.
Yeah, after getting blown out 40-0, I think Bill Belichick can capitalize on Mills, rookie quarterback. Not a good look. Who do you have? Lions, Vikings.
I think Minnesota, right? I think Detroit's slowly falling apart. I mean, they got dominated by a bad Chicago team last week. I go Vikings.
I think they pull one out here. I think this is the win. The Vikings have been on the edge with a lot of teams. I think the Lions can pull one out here. This is probably like one of their only shots. It's a divisional game. You know, you throw all bets out the windows in those games. I believe it's in Minnesota, but I'm not exactly sure. So here, I'll look really fast. Yeah, it's in Minnesota, but I think the Lions can possibly pull this one out. We'll see. Who do you got? Eagles, Panthers.
I go Carolina. They're a tough team. They come back from the loss.
Oh yeah, I think the Eagles. You know, they had a pretty tough loss to Kansas City, but I think it exposed that Carolina is a team that can capitalize on the Eagles. Saints, Washington.
So the Saints alternate on me between playing good and playing bad. They played bad last week. I think they're going to play good this week. I go Saints.
As much as I think this pick may come back to bite me, I think that the Heineken Hate Game boils over into this week, and I think Heinicke and that team, they played well offensively against a bad Falcons defense. I hope they can pull it out. The Saints are a beatable team. I think it's a team that if they're going to get a good win, that's one that they have it on. We already picked Titans, Jags. We both picked the Titans. Dolphins, Bucks.
I think Tampa. I think Dolphins are in a free fall.
Yeah, I think Brady just brings back PTSD to Dolphins team. He was in the East Division with them for a long time. I think he's probably got their number. It doesn't matter what team they're on. We both picked. You picked Bengals. I picked Green Bay. Broncos, Steelers.
You know, I think this is more me not liking Pittsburgh and Ben Roethlisberger. I'm going Denver.
I actually don't think I'm capable of picking Pittsburgh, so that was an easy decision for me. Raiders, Bears. One's coming off of a big win. One is coming off of a huge loss.
I think this is the Raiders. I think the Bears still have issues offensively, and I think they haven't played great in the year. I'm going Gruden after the loss. I'm going Raiders.
I'm going to take the Bears. I'm going to take Nagy to want to capitalize on a good performance by Fields. Wasn't great. It was good. But I don't know. I probably regret that one later, but I just, I feel like last week there were so many upsets that maybe picking extremely from my gut is going to be a little bit better than trying to pick who I think is the best team.
Hey, that's why we call it gut check, man.
All right, we both got the Chargers over the Browns. Cowboys, Giants.
I think go Dallas. They're playing well.
I can't pick against you, so. Got Niners, Cardinals.
Arizona's playing great ball. 49ers are battling some injuries. I'm going Arizona.
I agree with you. They're beating great teams. They're beating them bad. I think the injuries, Jimmy G is at least going to be slower if he plays. There's no way. We both picked Bills over Chiefs. Now finally, Colts Ravens.
This is Baltimore, right? The Colts have disappointed this year. Baltimore's playing really well.
I think finally we beat a good team bad, or good, so to speak. We barely found a way to win the last few weeks. We finally had a statement win. Maybe we figured out what we're supposed to be doing on offense a little bit. It sucks that Teddy Bridgewater got knocked out, but fortunately enough, I think you can blow the wrong way and Carson Wentz is going to get knocked out. So that's not too hard. Well, we made it all the way through there. Let's see, after a big week last weekend, let's see if we can capitalize on positive records and keep this train moving.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be a great weekend. I mean, a lot of big games, a lot of fun matchups. I'm just like last week, excited to watch it, and excited to keep talking about it and see how the season shapes up.
This season has left us with no shortage of topics. I'm sure something crazy will happen in the next coming week. We appreciate you listening to us here at Saturday Morning Inspection. For those of you who've stuck all the way through and we excited you so much that you forgot, you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Look for Saturday Morning Inspection. It'll pop up. You can find us at our website. Has all of our socials on there. smishow.com. If you'd like to hear some funny tweets, some cool graphics, and us just generally being ourselves, check out our Twitter, SMI Football Show on Twitter. We appreciate you being with us, and we will see you next week.